border to border, coast to coast. Podcast by George.
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. Got a show today on a topic that probably is not going to be seen in a lot of places today. And, I got to thinking about it with everything that's going on in Palestine and Israel this morning. What am I going to be doing talking about Palestine? We scheduled the show last week before that all blew up over there. But then again, I got to thinking about what I've mentioned on the show before. I ain't forgetting about East Palestine, Ohio. I'm going to continue to cover it. And Status Quo does too. We're going to have a little clip from them, but I'm going to continue to cover it because I don't want to be a part of the United States of amnesia, as it's called, when it comes to the media. I mean, if you check out any mainstream corporate media today, you're going to see Gaza, obviously, Donald Trump maybe, but you're not going to see East Palestine, Ohio. So it's contingent. It's up to folks like me, this little bitty part of this left-wing independent media fabric out here, to continue to keep the visibility, to continue to heighten the awareness for this all-important issue, these poor victims out in East Palestine, Ohio. And I wanted to bring up the graphic here. I hope you saw this on YouTube and Facebook, and that's pretty much what it's about, staying on point in East Palestine with the great Jami Rae Wallace. I'm going to read her Liveline intro here, pretty short. Jami Rae Wallace is a wife and mother. She was in her home in East Palestine, Ohio, when one of the worst man-made disasters in American history descended upon her community and her family. She joins us on the podcast by George Liveline. So let me click a couple of buttons here and say good morning to our old friend out there in Ohio. It's Jami Rae Wallace. Hi, Jami.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks for coming in here. Now, before we get going, I got to, as I mentioned, probably I do have to mention what's going on in the news here with Palestinians and Gaza and Israel. This is some of the latest news reporting that I saw. This thing is about to go sideways. I mean, man, could this get really bad real quick? Jami, I did a show yesterday with Matthew Ho on this, and then I was also on Misty Winston's radio show last night. Talking about this, kind of trying to give it some Midwest sensibilities, because I'm trying to see both sides of that issue. I really am. I mean, I'm trying to understand the other side of this, but so far I'm not having much success. I'm seeing a bunch of people in a cage out there, a couple of 1 million who are children, and them finally striking out, lashing out at their captors, their oppressors, basically. And this thing is what it is today. We are reaping what we sow. That was the title of my show yesterday. But the headline here, Israel-Hamas war live updates. The death toll now tops 2,200. God. We need graphics to show death counts, because 2,200 dead people, man, that's a lot of dead people, folks. And dying will ruin your day, your only life, including 14 U.S. citizens. And here's the scary part of this. This is what gives me the bejabbers. Biden confirms American hostages. Oh, man. And so this is reporting out of the USA Today this morning. The United States has Israel's back. Okay. And I thought, well, this is a subject for another day, but it kind of brings us to where we're at here with East Palestine. And I actually got confused, Jami. I said Palestine a couple of times yesterday when I meant to say Palestine when I was doing the show on that. But the question is, for you, and maybe it's changed, but who has your back? Who has the back of East Palestine, Ohio right now?
Right now, I'm not seeing a whole lot of people have our back. We did get a lot of support after going to Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
We met with, I want to say, like 10 senators in one day. So we had letters of support from J.D. Vance, from Sherrod Brown, both from Ohio, Ro Khanna. We had a letter that was sent to Biden urging him to declare a disaster that was signed by 34 state legislators from 22 different states. So I think that Unity Council is starting to get the attention of some of our politicians on the federal level. We still have not gotten a whole lot of response from our own representatives at a state level. The state level, I think, has definitely heard our voices. Local government, not so much.
Yeah, and you play along with me here now. I would say that probably is because of local political and business interests, which are much more a real issue with those folks than on the federal level. And I originally thought, and I'm going to bring this up on screen and have you comment about this because this came down here a month or two ago or whatever, and I saw a little advancer for it, and I thought, my God, Joe Biden never came to East Palestine, but he's finally going to do something. And I looked at this thing, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. This is from the White House fact sheet. President Biden issues executive order to protect people in East Palestine, Ohio, and nearby communities, and continue to hold Norfolk Southern accountable. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I got to get Jami Rae on the live line here because I'm not so sure this is exactly accurate. Since the onset of the Norfolk Southern train derailment, the Biden-Harris administration has mobilized a robust whole of government response to support the people of East Palestine. Okay, Jamie, I got to have you talk about that because some people, real cynics like me, would say, well, what you maybe don't need is the government. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe they need to do something. I don't know. Would you call what's happening robust since that executive order was issued?
No, it's been what, almost 9 months now? Uh,
Yeah.
Executive order was kind of, I guess, Biden's way of saying shut up after he got a bunch of letters from legislators. We need government support. We need health care for life. We need help, restoring ourselves financially as residents, not just, the community, the leaders, the businesses. At this point, I don't care if Biden comes or not. It wouldn't be genuine. It's kind of like forcing someone to say, I love you. If he didn't care enough to come, all I need him to do is sign that executive order. I'm sorry, the disaster declaration. The executive order is nothing but him saying, investigate it and see what unmet needs are. We've screamed our unmet needs. It's 9 months later. The same thing's going to happen that's been happening. State and local legislators are going to block our voices when they have these important meetings, like they already have had with the FEMA coordinator. They only speak to our city government, or our city government invites the business owners. Um, Real quick story: the last couple of weeks ago, they had a field hearing that was scheduled to happen in East Palestine. It ended up getting canceled due to the government gridlock. But the only people that were speaking at this hearing was our mayor, which money has paid off our whole city government. It has paid off all the business owners. There's a huge divide in our community, which I can tell you about in a minute. But they invited him to speak, and they also invited a business owner. This particular business owner had just sold a building to Norfolk Southern. If you go to the county auditor's website, it said that the building was worth $127,000. Norfolk Southern bought it for $500,000. So this was the one person that they were going to have testify as to whether or not Norfolk Southern has been meeting our unmet needs in the community. So we still have not got to speak to this FEMA coordinator, and I feel like there's a reason why. They're blocking our voices.
I'm very interested in well, I'm interested in all of this, but the element of Medicare for all that you mentioned. If Biden declares an emergency with an executive order, he can extend free health care to everybody out there. And you think, well, some people have private insurance, they don't need it. Well, yeah, but this is for the people that don't. And it's also so that those people don't incur an expense because this is through no fault of their own. They are victims of this government controlled railroad or vice versa, and they should be taken care of. A lot of people aren't aware that this can be done really with the stroke of a pen on a limited basis just for your folks that are out there. And I'd like to see it enacted because I'd like to see you get the help, but I'd also like to kind of see how the Medicare for all works. But of course, there's a lot of corporate interest, big insurance that doesn't want to see this, see the light of day at all. Has anyone on a government level intimated to you why that doesn't even appear to be on the table? Do you know why?
Well, because Biden still feels like he needs to look and see if we have unmet needs. And I guess a lot of this too is for the future. Right now, we might have private insurance, but if we get cancer early and we're unable to work, how long are we going to be able to keep that private insurance? Is my child going to have, private insurance by the time she gets cancer? I don't know. I'm praying to God we never get put into that situation. But hopefully having the Medicare for all would also allow people to get the early intervention of some of the illnesses that are going to be caused by this derailment.
And is anybody kicking about the cost? Because I basically tell people on my show that's a red herring. That's a non sequitur. We have a $1 trillion military budget, annually renewable in this country. We give $1 trillion government subsidies to corporations every year. My wife likes to remind me of that. We have a national debt that you can't even make. The zeros are uncountable. Basically, there's money to do this type of thing, so they can't tell you that they can't help you because they can't afford it. I mean, that just doesn't stand the smell test here. Now I wanted
And
to,
that's one of the things our legislators have said from the beginning is there is, a party here that is accountable. Norfolk Southern should be paying for all this, not our taxpayer dollars. And what I say to that is the residents shouldn't be left to assume that burden. Why doesn't the government help us and then sue Norfolk Southern?
Yes.
Yes, there's an accountable party. Yes, it's taxpayer dollars, but guess what? I'm a taxpayer. Everyone in East Palestine has paid taxes that has worked in the past. And like you said, as a taxpayer, I would much rather my money go to your community if you had kids covered in rashes with blood still coming out of their nose 8 months later than I would have it go to anything else. So yes, it's taxpayer money, but it's my money too. And we need to look at the things that we are spending taxpayer money on. And if there's something that's definitely worth it, it's human health. I'd rather help people with their health issues to become healthy as opposed to killing people.
Yeah, I mentioned Status Quo at the beginning. I know Jordan Sheridan and his crew, they're big friends of yours. I love Status Quo because these people not only talk the talk, but they walk the walk. I mean, they're out on the ground. Ron Placone is working for him now. He's a guest on my show oftentimes, and he was just up covering the UAW strike. I mean, they get out and they get it done. I'm going to play this. It's very brief, this clip from Jordan, just to give him a little love here, and then we'll come right back after this.
Just think with your brain, common sense. Do you think that you're going to detonate 5 cars of a highly cancerous, toxic chemical and it just disappear and everybody be fine and there's no contamination in the town? These people are suffering.
That's a great Jordan Sheraton, and they've done yeoman's work covering this from top to bottom, and they haven't forgotten about you or forgotten it either. But the point that Jordan makes, and I know that you make, but it's not being heard a lot around the country, is that these issues, these medical issues, are real, they're severe, and they're ongoing. Talk about what people are encountering, what they're suffering from out there, Jami.
Well, I can talk about, one story in particular. One of our Unity Council members, she has 5 boys. Her youngest are 1 and 2 years old. They were having rashes, a lot of respiratory issues, some nosebleeds. Her 11-year-old was having the nosebleeds. They were out of their home for 6 months. None of the children were sick. She had her home cleaned by this cleaning program that the EPA had. The railroad's been cutting people off one by one. School was starting, so she decided to move back into her home. Not even a week after being there, everyone's sick again. I can show you pictures of her little 2-year-old. I mean, when I say covered in these bright red rashes. Why are these children not sick when they're out of town? And when people talk about mass psychosis, how does a 1 or 2-year-old know enough to manifest these symptoms onto themselves? How are animals? We're watching our animals with their teeth falling out now. A lot of people in town are now reporting issues with their teeth either falling out or them having to get them fixed. This is not in our head. The CDC got sick. Media people got sick. Politicians, JD Vance's aide that was poking the stick in the creek with him early on has had nosebleeds for a month. This is not in our heads.
Yeah. And again, to kind of get back, so tell us what you would like to see done. People say, "Well, what you want? What do we do?" And don't let cost factor into this, because like this $1 trillion that I'm talking about with the military and that's a stack of $1,000 bills 67 miles high. That's what $1 trillion is. So it ain't the cost. So just tell us, without cost considerations at all, what you would like to have happen.
Well, the first thing we need our residential homes tested. Even homes that are within feet of the derailment site, they will not test until the remediation is done, but yet people are expected to live in these homes. They're absolutely refusing to do in-home air testing. Of course, people need to be relocated on some kind of a more temporary permanent basis, if that makes sense, like maybe a year lease until we can figure out whether or not our homes are safe to go into. Of course, the Medicare for all, so that we can face our health concerns, but there are things that we need done as a community that are not getting done right now. What would be the cost to Norfolk Southern? Test 100 homes, just to shut us up. We shouldn't have to live in these homes that they are refusing to test. It's just unimaginable. And when we talk about the money, something recently that I was made aware of was Norfolk Southern is trying to buy.
We just lost Jamie, and I wonder if that wasn't.
Sorry,
Oh, there you are. You're coming back in.
it was an incoming call. I apologize.
There it is.
But one of the things that Norfolk Southern is trying to do right now is buy the last publicly owned railroad.
Yeah, I
It's in
saw that.
Cincinnati, Ohio. Right here in our very state of Ohio. And, I'm urging the citizens not to do that. Vote no, because once Norfolk Southern takes this over, they have all the control of the regulations. They're buying it, I think, was it 1.6 or $1.8 billion? If they have the money to go down there and buy another railroad, they have the money to test 50, 100 homes in East Palestine. What was done to us, the fact that they didn't do early medical testing is an injustice to every single one of you, every person watching. They should have started testing us early so that when this happens in another community, then they're better prepared to know how to treat you. If if I'm going to die in 10 years, or God forbid my daughter get cancer at an early age, at least it wouldn't be for nothing. At least maybe we could save another community.
And I've got this up on screen, this article here out of Cincinnati. East Palestine residents urge Cincinnatians to vote no to the Norfolk Southern sale. Well, they look at you, Jamie. Well, she's mad at Norfolk Southern. She doesn't want Norfolk Southern to be able to sell or do anything. But the other part about this is, and I don't know who owns the rail line that's being purchased or sold and all that kind of stuff, but Norfolk Southern has some issues that's still yet to be resolved. I mean, if you're somebody in Cincinnati, as an example, do you want this thing to go through? Probably not.
Well, it's owned by the taxpayers. And, what I keep telling people is no potential benefit from selling that railroad outweighs your child's health. When you're looking at this and you're gambling, okay, maybe there's a 1 in a million chance that this train, if bought by Norfolk Southern, would derail with chemicals in the middle of Cincinnati. But is that gamble worth your child's life? It's not. It's not worth your child's life. And imagine if that tanker would have blown. We were evacuated within a 1 mile radius because that's the radius in which that shrapnel would have blown. What if that would have blown in downtown Cincinnati?
Oh my God.
People don't think of those things, and I want to warn people. Just real quick, another thing that people need to think about are these facilities that are in their communities and emergency response plans. We recently went down and helped Eyes on Shell canvas in Beaver County, PA, right over the border. There's the Shell plant, the big, we call it the cracker plant down there. And they have an emergency response plan for the actual building, for the facility, for the business, but they do not have an emergency evacuation plan for the community around it. These are things that I wish I would have been warned about, that I wish I would have thought about. Those things that you just kind of put in the back of your mind and don't pay attention to until you're faced with one of these situations. Like, just make sure you look around you, be aware of the potential, chemical hazards around you, and make sure that there are some kind of response plans in place to get you out if something were to happen.
Yeah, and consider this, and we've talked about this on my show before. We're all at risk. I mean, virtually all of us, millions are. We're all in proximity from downwind, if nothing else. But a lot of people have a rail line close to them. They don't realize it. I want to put this up on screen because Suzanne Murphy, now she's with Truth Bomb Activists, a Facebook group here. Great group. She was on my show recently. She has a way of kind of, I don't know what she's got a name for it, I think, leveling up or looking up a level or, and that's what she's doing here. She says the cost isn't the testing, it's the result of the testing and what it will reveal. That's why this isn't happening. It ain't that upfront cost. It's what comes after, right?
And the more persistent that they are about not testing, the more you know that there's a reason. If I could prove you wrong right now by doing a test and, I want to shut you up, why wouldn't you do it? And, like I said, the more pushback you get, you only refuse to do something, hide something, lie about something if you've done something wrong. Just the lies that the EPA has told alone. Why do people lie? We don't lie because we're doing what's right. We don't lie because we haven't done anything wrong. So the more persistent and more adamant they are, the more that it tells me that we're onto something and we need to keep pushing.
Well, Jamie's very generous with her time. We've had her on before. A lot of people love seeing her on my show. As a matter of fact, when I promoted this, I got a lot of comments. So a lot of people looking forward to this. They're really dialed into your plight. And I wanted to cover some things here very quickly now because we will run out of time. This is one of the more recent articles that I saw. This was published October 3rd by one of your local news agencies there, 19 News, that reads, the EPA gave East Palestine residents the green light to garden, telling residents on Tuesday that their soil is safe. Not everyone's buying it. The new soil results came on the heels of a lawsuit filed against the EPA by a nonprofit watchdog organization. It's been exactly 8 months since Norfolk Southern derailed in East Palestine, and the lives of everyone who lives in the small town changed forever. And this is a quote from the president of the United Council of East Palestine and a former resident. These are our children's lives, says Jami Wallace. She says, this is not a game. We are not entertainment. We need help, and we need help now. So this goes on. I'm not going to keep that up there, but I wanted to talk about a little bit about this testing. And I do have a slide here with this guy. Okay, I'll bring this up on screen. This garden testing thing. This is from Scott Smith. I know Jamie knows him. He says preliminary crop garlic testing for East Palestine is in. While more testing and data is needed before final conclusions can be made, I can say that dioxins on a TEQ basis in garlic post derailment versus the garlic control are around 10 times higher, or 440 parts versus 4.5 parts. Note that there appears to be no standards related to garlic and or crops when it comes to dioxins. In order to help protect the community, why isn't the EPA doing hundreds of samples before declaring things safe? Okay, Jamie, what's your opinion about this? Now, I got news for you. I'm not eating out of your garden. I don't know who wants to or who would, but that's craziness.
Well, that was actually a friend of mine, and what had happened is wild garlic grows in her yard, and she had frozen some that was from before the derailment. So, there was some type of comparison to this garlic that grew after the derailment. You can't find what you're not tested for. That's, one of Scott's sayings. And when they went in and tested these crops to say they were safe, they weren't testing for the right things. And, part of the issue is they also came out with a statement that said, we feel like it's safe to eat the wildlife. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no reason to believe, I think is how they worded it. but they never tested it. 2 days before that, we just released the video Dr. Chai did. We call him our creek ranger, but 2 days before they said this, he and a couple other people were down looking at the creeks because that's what he does. And they see a dead snake. And next to the dead snake, there's a dead frog. And there's a video of this, that's time stamped. And he starts poking this dead frog with the shovel, and all these chemicals come out of it. So how can you tell me when our wildlife is going to these creeks, and there's no reason to believe? I'm so tired of this. Test it and tell us. Don't say, oh, well, we don't believe, your indoor air is bad because the outdoor air is good. On your own website, it says indoor air is 2 to 5 times more, can hold 2 to 5 times more pollutants. So don't tell me that you don't think. We're banking, these I don't thinks on our children's lives.
Yeah. And I'm in Jordan Sheridan's camp. I mean, I like science. I understand some of it. I like it when it reinforces common sense, but common sense tells you, where do you think this shit went to? I mean, it went up in the air. It came down, obviously. It's not chemical that like evaporate or dissipate or go anywhere. I mean, that stuff's obviously still there. And if the cloud, it was over a garden, I ain't eating the garlic or the turnip or the tomato or anything that comes out of that. I mean, it's just common sense, for God's sake. Some of this stuff just begs credulity. Okay, we got to keep. Yeah, go ahead,
I
Jamie.
did a whole thing called Common Sense. Just like I was telling you about, my friend whose child was sick, Mark Durno from the US EPA went in her basement and there was a bag of shoes and she was like, smell this. And he said, oh, it smells like chemicals. Let me take it with me. And she said, well, let me think about that. The next day he comes back with a rep from CTEH, who also smells the chemicals, and then spots a box of household cleaners in the corner of her basement that are unopened, and says, oh, that's probably where the smell's coming from. If you smell it again or the kids get worse, call us and we'll put an outdoor air monitor in front of your house. Okay, why not test the indoor air? When I questioned a higher up, Alfred, I think his name's Sadako, from the US EPA about this, he said, well, Mark Durno did an investigation and her house didn't need tested. And I said, well, what investigation did he do? Where are the test results? You know what he told me? Mark Durno's nose is a very powerful tool. That's what they're putting our kids' lives on, Mark Durno's nose.
Yeah. And
would you want your kid put on somebody's nose? And if he's, has this great nose, why was he concerned enough to try to take this bag of shoes?
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
If that was cleaner, wouldn't he know?
Jeez. Yeah, let's bet my grandkids' life on the dude's nose. Okay. So, let me bring this up on screen because this gets to the local element that I was talking about. The Unity Council advocates express health concerns at the East Palestine meeting. This is Jamie's group now. 8 months after a train carrying toxic materials derailed in the small village of East Palestine, some residents feel uncertain about the future. It's going on a year now, and we're still living in a purgatory, just waiting for the next step, says do you know this person's name, Jamie? I can't remember. Okay. And East Palestine. Yeah. She's been living they've been living in a hotel since the derailment. Several other people from the advocacy group Unity Council spoke with Mayor Trent Conaway and East Palestine council members ahead of a regularly scheduled council meeting. Okay, I gotta say something here. I know city councils gotta work on, dog licenses and sewer permits and planning and zoning and that kind of stuff. But if you guys want to talk about this, Jamie, you got to talk ahead of the regularly scheduled. Are your issues talked about and discussed in the regular city council meetings, or do you have to get on the agenda as something special and maybe even tertiary to even get a forum here?
We had to, request this meeting. And part of it is, after the meeting, the mayor says, well, majority of the people just want to move on. Show me statistics that say the majority are living in a small town's like a big high school clique. Once you get kicked out of the cool crowd, people are bullying you. They're chastising you. We have things going on like the fire chief's mistress, girlfriend, whatever she is, getting a job at the fire station that's funded by Norfolk Southern. We have another firefighter's daughter is now our event planner for the town that plans events for Norfolk Southern. You know, we have the school getting like $300,000, and then they just got like another $700,000. You have $1 million that was given to the city, but it's in Norfolk Southern's bank account, and they have to ask Dad before they can spend the money. You know, it's all about money, and it's about not everyone being sick. It's kind of like COVID. I may be asymptomatic and someone else dies, you know, but they're choosing to believe that people are making up these illnesses. You know, when you have a community where neighbors are afraid to tell other neighbors that they're sick because they don't want their children being harassed at school or to receive the bullying that I have received from my community, you know, it's terrible. And we went into this meeting with city council, and our ask was not to change people's minds, but for people to watch the roundtable that we're hosting on October 16th at 6 o'clock. It's just a researcher review roundtable. I believe a lot of this is from ignorance. You know, when you think about it, I talk to these scientists every day. I hear people like you that are just flabbergasted, like it doesn't make sense. It goes up, it's got to come down. You know, people all over the country, all over the world, can't believe what's going on in East Palestine, but yet half of our communities, like, we're getting all this bad publicity. You know, you're running your mouth, and I'm getting attacked by the mayor, getting attacked by the fire chief, the police officers in our town, the business owners, just getting like ridiculous things brought up from my past. You know, well, you filed bankruptcy years ago. Okay,
Wow.
what does that have to do with me wanting answers? And it's not about changing their minds, it's just about them understanding. I mean, the inspector general just investigated, well, has been investigating the EPA for a while. They just put out their report. The EPA just, you know, screwed up some test results on their website by a decimal point.
Yeah.
You know, do you realize what a decimal point
Oh, that's
means?
huge. Yeah, I know.
Well,
Well,
you're right.
yeah, we just
They said in this report that the EPA has given us legit reason not to trust them. But yet people in our community are like, you're
trust them.
making the EPA out to be liars. They are.
We just here where I live, Jamie, we just the state well, not the state, but CCI and a bunch of other community action groups just sued the EPA because they're not doing anything to protect us from poisoned groundwater. Basically, our water, our drinking sources, and our rivers and streams above ground and below ground are degraded hog manure, basically.
Right.
And they're not doing anything about it. The EPA is not using the enforcement ability that they have. So we're suing the EPA. As a matter of fact, and during that show that I had on, I mentioned you folks because I know of the problems that you've had. Let me bring this back up on screen here and work through this. And you've talked about some of this. The specifics of their complaints varied, but a common thread appeared to be concerns about long-term health implications. That's what Jamie's talking about, her kids and grandkids. Guinness and others want to see a health testing program implemented in East Palestine, as well as consistent indoor air quality monitoring. We talked about that. Let me see here the rest of this. I highlighted some of this. Now, the mayor, Trent Conaway, told Pittsburgh's Action News 4 that the cleanup from the derailment is about 85% complete, but there is a long way to go when it comes to the recovery process. We're all here to stay, Conaway said, and this highlighting his mind. We want to raise our families in this town and continue to do good things and turn into something that everybody will want to come to East Palestine. Okay, the reason I highlighted this, Jamie, I know you got the hell out of there. You fled because of what's going on. I don't know. Is that a goal? Is that you know, I told you first time I interviewed you, I said they ought to put a fence up around the place and reimburse the people who have to move. And that probably would be the best thing to do. Again, don't worry about the cost. We got plenty of money, folks. But is that the future of East Palestine? Are you going to be having events? And I know they've had some events, but you're going to be welcoming people into the community at some point in the future, do you think?
No, but I will tell you this, the truth in that statement is people don't want to leave. We want to know that
Yeah.
our homes are safe. Again, it's hard for some people to understand, but in that type of community, I'm sorry, I had to readjust. A lot of our homes, a lot of that land is multi generational. A
It
lot of
is.
this land has been in our families for 100 plus years. My stepdad has lived in the same house 6 generations of his family. I know that once the testing's done, it's not going to be safe. But if something would show me that it was safe, maybe the fact of the matter is everything's fine except for the creeks. As long as you don't let your kids go in the creeks, you can live happily ever after in East Palestine. That's fine, but people need to have the information to make those informed decisions. Um, in my heart of heart, I wish every day that they would say everything's fine and it would be what these people are saying, but I know it's not. Once that testing comes back, it's going to show us that we have to leave our multi generational land, our multi generational homes. So, I think there is part of that that's true. The other thing that really bothers me is even if, let's just say, tomorrow everything's completely clean, the East Palestine they're trying to build is not the East Palestine that I want to live in. I chose to live in East Palestine, not only because it's where I grew up, but because it's a small town. I can sit in the middle of the park in the field and watch the fireworks with my daughter, where, I watch the fireworks with my dad. They're going to put in a $25 million park with an amphitheater. They're moving our historical bathhouse for a swimming pool and putting in a new swimming pool. They just put in this new training center for the firefighters. They're going to be people coming in for training, so they're going to need a hotel. They're going to need, like, if I wanted all this stuff, I'd live in the city. That's why I quit my job in Cleveland and moved back home when I found out I was pregnant at 42 because I wanted my daughter raised by her family. I didn't want to put her in daycare. I wanted to be able to run her over to my mom's. Uh, they're making this into something that it's about money. It's about these businesses profiting when all these people are coming into town. It's not about the history of our town. It's not about the people in our town. It's all about this money and what they can bring in, the revenue that they can bring in by building all these facilities. You can put lipstick on a pig, still pig.
We know all about pigs here where I'm at, and yeah, your point is well taken. These are people that we're talking about, and the harm that's been done, just a small part of it, maybe, is what Jamie's talking about. This is going to be in the backs of their minds forever. That's kind of what PTSD is. As long as Jamie lives in and around East Palestine, Ohio, she's going to be thinking about that. All of those, there are, and she's at the point of the spear here. I mean, she's the spokesperson on my show as an example, but there are thousands just like her, innocent victims that will never be free of this. And their kids and maybe their grandkids, you're always going to be thinking every time you turn over a shovel of dirt, every time you step into a stream or a river, that maybe you're going to be poisoned for life. And for that reason, if none other, and there's plenty of others, folks, but for that reason, you ought to be taken care of. Your demands ought to be met. You ought to be compensated. And I don't know, you're innocent, you're victims, and it's just a bizarroville to me that America doesn't respond the way that it should. Now, I'm running out of time, so I got to cover some ground here. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Jamie's group here and the Facebook page. Now, a couple of clippings off of this. Only President Biden has the power to approve Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's request for a disaster declaration in East Palestine. We talked about the significance of that. By approving the request, President Biden would enable the federal government to give residents the financial relief and comprehensive environmental testing that they desperately desperately require. The disaster and is one of the worst in U.S. history. And this talks about the February 3rd disaster. These chemicals I can't even name. I can't even read half of them, but I know they probably got these down by second nature, but they're in the air, soil, and water around the crash site. The immediate aftermath from the 38-car pileup was devastating. Animals died, by the thousand in contaminated waterways and a cloud of toxic chemicals so large that it could be seen from space. Yeah, they got a satellite photo of that, blanketed the town. Months later, businesses lie shuttered, gardens rot, and many can't access independent testing to see how many toxins are in their home, food, and water. Previously, health residents now suffer, and we talked about this, bloody noses, burning throats, nausea, and in some cases, life-threatening heart conditions. Scientists say the poisonous chemicals could stick around for decades. To make matters worse, the cleanup effort has been led by Norfolk Southern, the same company responsible for the disaster. It's not only a conflict of interest, it's an insult to those affected. And Norfolk has left thousands without proper care. And I guess we need to make a clarification or a distinction here. You would like to see Norfolk suffer the consequences of this in the end and particularly pay for it. Like you said, the government could cover you immediately while you're waiting for that. But they shouldn't be the ones overseeing what the end result of this or the ramifications of it will be for them. Again, just common Midwestern sense tells you that's begs credulity. I mean, are they too dumb or are they in on it, Jamie?
They're in on it.
Yeah.
They can't possibly be that dumb. You know, like it's common sense.
Yes,
Like,
that's the
you
whole
know,
point. It is
not that
common sense. Let's see how
any
this
type of education to know that, you know, like I said, when I was arguing with my husband about going home, and I think as Americans, we just think the EPA does what they're supposed to do, and our government in general, until we have to deal with them. And, you know, I told him we're going home. If the EPA says it's fine, it's fine. What are we going to do? You know, as soon as I pulled in my driveway and I was overtaken by this smell, my lungs started burning, my mouth, my nose. I didn't need a scientist to tell me anything. I didn't need to be that smart. I mean, you know, my 4-year-old daughter could have told me it was not good to be there at that point. You know, she would have been trying to get away and get fresh air. They can't possibly be that dumb. At
Here's
least I hope.
a comment from a viewer that I hadn't considered. Now, everybody considered it immediately when it came to the situation in Maui, but I didn't think about it applying out where you're at so much. But maybe it is real there also. Land grab. I mean, are there people that are speculators that are, for instance, hoping that you never come back and they want your place and they want your land and they're willing to do it? And is that a monkey wrench, one more monkey wrench in the works that's preventing this from happening? What do you think about that, Jamie?
There's some people that say that there was cobalt. I don't even know what the hell cobalt is. Because, you know, that's the thing about our town. Not only do we have mines that run under town, but our buildings were literally built on top of these creeks. And I've heard some people saying that there was old cobalt mines. And this could potentially be why they're trying to get the land, because, you know, it is a heavily mined area. So we do have natural resources. You know, I'm not sure of anything anymore. You know, I find myself, Maui, for example, you know, my mom called and said, did you see the videos where this laser shot down and started those fires? And what, you know, and then I start thinking it was the freaking government, or was it the aliens? And then I start thinking, what the hell is wrong with you? You're going crazy.
Yeah.
You know? And then I'm like, but from what I'm dealing with,
Yes.
I can see it on it.
That's the
Those
point.
people that, you know, hull up out west with the shotguns and fight the government that I used to think were out there, I don't think they're that far out there anymore. That scares me. You know, I talked to a psychiatrist before this. I did. I'm not ashamed to do that. You know, I believe in mental health. And I'll ask my psychiatrist, have I finally lost it when I start thinking the U.S. government started a fire in Maui? And he's like, with what all you're dealing with?
There
You
are
know?
some that believe that. Some believe it just by their inaction and that it wasn't accidental, that it was purposeful. And I don't know that I'm going to go and jump into that rabbit hole necessarily, but here's what I will say. That cobalt situation, I don't know if you're sitting on top of cobalt or not, but if you are, think batteries. Think about the future of the grid. Think about the future of energy. I mean, it's going to have a lot to do with batteries. Cobalt is going to be in big demand. And I don't know, again, if that's got any basis in reality, but that's what we're talking about, folks. Okay, this next slide talks about the need for the emergency declaration. And then it talks about the Unity Council, a grassroots group made up of affected residents in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Now, don't forget that. Pennsylvania is affected as well. They're working tirelessly to bring attention to the crisis, partnering with them on the critical campaign. And with your help, our call to action can be heard around the world. If we do not stand together, we will be forgotten. Hillary Flint, Unity Council board member from Enon Valley, Pennsylvania. Okay, I want to end that there, but that's the reason for the show. I'm not forgetting. I mean, I said that from the very beginning. I love Jami. I'm not going to forget. Yeah, I'm going to continue to cover this. And we've had some great comments from viewers here. And Suzanne Murphy here has got a closing word, and appreciate her weighing in here. Again, she's with Truth Bomb Activists. And Jami, I want to give you last word just because you deserve it, and you're continuing to fight this struggle and this battle. And you mentioned the fact that, you know, of what's happening with you personally. This is never going to be easy. I hope it does get easier for you, but give us a wrap up here. Give us your closing thoughts.
My closing thoughts. Everyone is trying to make this a big political game, and this isn't a red issue. It's not a blue issue. It's an issue of human lives. People are suffering, and this could happen anywhere in the United States. I think East Palestine just magnifies a lot of the problems, that have been around for a long time. I urge people to open your eyes, look around you, see what the environmental hazards are. Pay attention to this situation. I admit I'm guilty of that. I heard about Flint, Michigan on TV, and you'd see it here or there or look at it, but it could have taught me a lot of valuable lessons going into this fight. The people of East Palestine need every single one of you, whether it's writing a letter to your legislators or signing our petition that's online to try to get Biden to declare this state of emergency. We're human beings. It's our children. I don't understand how people are not paying attention to children with rashes and blood coming out of their ears and noses. That should be on national news every day.
Yes.
So I thank you for creating that awareness that we're not getting.
Yeah. And just saying what needs to be said here. Don't be a part of, Jordan Sheridan, he talks all the time about the United Corporations of America. Don't be a part of that. And then also don't be a part of the United States of amnesia when it comes to this media coverage, because, and rightfully so, I mean, we're going to have a lead story here with this horrific situation in Gaza, because there's a potential with nuclear weapons in play out there. It could end all of this and make what we're talking about today a moot issue. But if it doesn't, don't forget East Palestine, Ohio. We're going to revisit it. We're going to come back and talk to Jami again. It'll be, a few weeks maybe, but we're on her side. And Jami, we're with you, and I'm going to continue to think of you, and we'll talk again very soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, folks. And if you like, here's the closing thing. And I'm for real now. If you like seeing Jami Rae Wallace, if you like this opportunity to interact with somebody like her who needs your support and is very deft at handling your questions and comments, go to podcastbygeorge.com to get future broadcasts. You can get the live streams on Facebook and on YouTube, the video live streams, by signing up there. That's the easiest way to find us, is on podcastbygeorge.com. Or if you just prefer the audio, you just want to listen to the rebroadcast of this in audio form when you're driving your car or riding your bike or rollerblading or whatever it is that you do, go to podcastbygeorge.com and subscribe free. It's all free on YouTube, but also the audio on Spotify, iTunes, it's called Apple Podcasts now, I think, and places like that. But that's going to do it. That's going to wrap it up. That's all there is. And there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.